Hi, hello and welcome to Shankar IAS Academy's Daily Current Affairs Analysis. Today's date is 22/2026. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit on the bell icon when you want to receive instant updates. And also there's a small announcement regarding the Prelims Fitness, the pre-fit test series for 2026. The batch starts on 20th Feb of 2026. There are about 54 integrated tests, and for more information you can contact this number 90031 and 90030. There are about 31 questions which were reflected last year from the pre-fit test series. The direct reflections were 20 questions and the partial reflections were 11 questions. So with that we come to the topic of the day. The first topic is a predecessor to the Red Fort, the Salimgarh Fort, and how it is very significant. The second topic is about how caste is deep-rooted even in the AI and caste system. The third is about the Supreme Court transfers on cases to one particular High Court, the forum shopping that is happening. The fourth, the mains, is about the Nicobar Project and the implications that it will have on the environment. And the fifth topic is the prelims focus for the day. Today's first topic of the day is about a fort that was built even before the Red Fort, and it is of high significance because it screams an oxymoron. It screams independence and captivity at the same time, and that's why it's very significant. This article was taken from the Ministry of Culture, and today we are going to decode about the Salimgarh Fort and its historical legacy. This is in the northeastern side of the colossal Red Fort that we see. So let's see. The first point, who established that? Here you see the name of the fort, the Salimgarh Fort. So the first part, Salim, it was built by Salim Shah Suri, that is the son of Sher Shah Suri, in 1546, and he built it against the Mughal return. So Babur, we all know that Babur had defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat, and then Humayun was the son of Babur, and when Humayun was about to get into the throne, the Sur dynasty came in, Sher Shah Suri came in, and he conquered the throne of Delhi, and Humayun had to flee by even swimming in the water of the Ganges. So today in the Mughal and British era, the second point, seized by Humayun as already said, and after Sher Shah Suri died and Salim Shuri built this, and after Humayun came back, he actually renamed this particular Salimgarh Fort as Nurgarh because he was not okay with having another name for the fort. He did not want to demolish the fort but simply rename it as Nurgarh, and it rose in importance when Shahjahan built the most important Red Fort. And the third is the prison phase, something very important. See, Aurangzeb after Shahjahan turned this into a prison. It was literally an Alcatraz. Alcatraz is basically an inescapable prison. When you have something which is inescapable, you call it an Alcatraz. So why do I say this is an Alcatraz? Because the geography of this is such that there was Yamuna on all sides, and in between we had the prison. So the prison was surrounded by the Yamuna river, and henceforth this had an island effect. The prisoners could not actually get out of the prison. This was turned into a prison by Aurangzeb, and the most significant prisoner was Murad Baksh. We all know that the younger brother of Aurangzeb was Murad Baksh, and when Aurangzeb got to the throne, he told that we need to have a celebratory dinner, so please come to meet me. And when Murad Baksh came, immediately he was sent to the prison, that is the Salimgarh or the Nurgarh Fort. This shows the fratricidal politics of Mughals. Now what is fratricidal politics? That is actually harming one's own tribe or harming one's own brother. That was very common in the Mughal and the Ottoman dynasty. So this is what is about this slide. So this is the entrance to the Salimgarh Fort as you see. This is the entrance. You see that there is an arch built over here. Here also we have a significance. We'll come in the upcoming slides. The architecture. First, it is a triangular plan and it has a massive rubble masonry. It's not something that's very smooth. The architecture is in a rubble fashion and the walls with rounded bastions. The natural protection. So this here the natural protection can also be called as the geographical determinism that we have, because it originally stood in the Yamuna river. And the Aravalli terrain was against defense. So because of the geography, it was a natural barrier that we had. And the key features is that earlier when we saw that there was an entrance, the sandstone entrance like this, we saw that it was built under Bahadur Shah Zafar. Bahadur Shah Zafar built this, and the arched bridge, the bridge there was earlier, the Red Fort was here, and to the east of it we had the Salimgarh Fort. So there was a connecting bridge that was there. The connecting bridge was built and it was supported, and the third one is the jail barrack. Former cells that were there, now it is functioning as a museum space. This is the fortification that happened. When we talk about the fortification, there is also something very, very significant that we have to talk about, that is the Indian National Army during the time 1945, they had their trials happened exactly in the Salimgarh Fort, and here prisoners, not only prisoners, even army officials, they were stationed here during the times of rebellion. And the Salimgarh Fort also has one more significance. It is the first place where courts usage by British. This particular place was also used as a court. Because they were prisoners, this place was also used as a court where Britishers would say, what you have done is right, what you have done is wrong, this is your sentence. They used this particular place as a court as well. So this was very, very significant. Now this is the jail that you are seeing. You see that it is built by brick, and you see that the entrance is like this. So this is the space. This is the Tripolia bridge. You see that there is a bridge here. So here you have the Red Fort, and here you have the Salimgarh Fort, and there is the bridge that is here, and on all sides this fort has water, which is why this is an Alcatraz, as already stated. Now, the government initiatives, the national status, it was declared as a monument of national importance in 2002. It included the Red Fort complex, and it was a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2007. So now if somebody asks you, if there is a prelims question stating that the Red Fort was built before the Salimgarh Fort, it is wrong, because the Salimgarh Fort was built first and Red Fort was built 100 years later. Okay. The Memorial Museum, the Ministry of Culture set up a Swatantra Senani Smark in 1995 to honor the Indian National Army heroes. The conservation status is that it is maintained by the Archaeological Survey of India through scientific preservation and comprehensive conservation management plan. So these are the government initiatives and the recognitions that have happened. Now coming to the prelims practice question for the day. Consider the following statements regarding the Salimgarh Fort. It was constructed by Salim Shah Suri in 16th century to strengthen the Sur Empire against Mughal expansion. Yes. It was originally built adjacent to the Red Fort by Shah Jahan. No, Shah Jahan built the Red Fort 100 years later. It is included as a part of the Red Fort complex in UNESCO World Heritage Site. So we know that the second statement is wrong, the statement 1 and statement 3 are right. So anything with 2 goes. So the answer should be 1 and 3 only. Let's check. Yes, the answer is 1 and 3 only. With this we come to the end of the first topic for the day, and we are moving to the second topic. So today's next topic of the day is about caste and AI, how AI has something very, very deep rooted and how it is very, very significant in the UPSC point of view. Today even AI is understanding what caste is, and it is understanding caste in a very different way. And there was a research, this article was taken from Times of India, and there were two names that were given. One is Usha Bansal and the other one is Pinkri Ahiriwal. There were two names that were given that exist only in research papers, and the name was given. There's no living person as such, and they asked the language model to identify what would their profession be. Immediately seeing the name Bansal, it stated that this person must be a scientist or a doctor or an engineer. And Pinky Ahriwar was a manual scavenger, a plumber or a construction worker. Now, the model had no information about the individuals, but it didn't need any. The surnames that carry invisible annotations, those are markers to caste, markers to community, and this is how the data was interpreted. Now, let's come back. The core issue, it shows that the large language models have caste stereotypes. How did caste come? We all know that caste came from Varna. Varna moved to Jadi, and Jadi moved to occupational fixation. And there is also a religious representation bias. When you immediately see the name, the caste name, you associate certain things with them. So there is a religious representation bias, and there are a lot of socio-economic hierarchies. There are relevant institutions here: the Ministry of Electronics and IT, India AI Mission, Responsible AI Principles, and Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023. There are relevant institutions as well. The large language models, what do they do? The large language models convert words into numerical vectors, and they have a high dimensional embedding space. So when the concept is similar, the vector also becomes familiar to the large language model. So today's first relation here is the data. The data normalization. It goes through a lot of websites, and historically, when certain names are associated to certain castes, and certain castes are associated with certain occupation, it becomes very familiar to the vector of the large language models, and that is why it has a structural bias. It is found closer, certain caste is found closer to high status, and marginalized caste is found closer to low income or low status. This is why this is very, very important to understand. The next point is the proxy identifier. Now, without the name, if I give a caste name, first was if I give a caste name, it will identify. Second is the religion. Is the religion, it will identify what caste I might be. Third, my place of habitation. That is, do I live in a ghetto or do I live in a urban area? These are proxy angles that come into accord, and they create stereotypes. The next is the black box syndrome. Now, what is the black box syndrome? In case a AI is hiring a person, this caste bias can make the person identify that this person belongs to this occupation and this person belongs to that occupation. It can segregate, and there are chances that a Usha might be taken to a job than a Pinky. So, what is the explanation regarding that? If both of them are equally qualified, is a pointer there. But now we don't have an answer to that, because the AI cannot explain why it took one person over the other, but data can, because data shows that the Savarna report, it shows that approximately 70% of people who have higher caste names are employed more than people who have lower caste names, in accordance, even though they have equal skill sets. which is why it is very, very significant to understand that the black box syndrome is a point that will hinder a lot of progress in the occupational stability as well. Now we see institutions, the IBM Research, the Dartmouth College, they analyzed the stereotypes in large language models. They used SWAT and PSAT, that is stereotypically the word-based association to a task and the personality-based answering task. And after that, they found out that winner in all the stories are from a particular caste. Even while generating stories, it associates people with higher caste to be winners. And that's why 7,200 AI generated stories had similar ideologies, which is why it is very, very important for us to understand how this syndrome works. And certain caste and religious identities are overrepresented, and certain Muslim representation or other minorities are underrepresented, and there is a cultural flattening. That is, tribal communities were represented generically and there is a lack of granular diversity representation. And prompt engineering reduces bias partially, and safety filters reduce the open harm, and there is a structural embedding, and there is always going to be a bias if AI language models do not change their ideology of thinking is what we are understanding from this cultural flattening and bias persistence. Partially only the prompt engineers were able to reduce bias is something that you can give it in the way forward. With years to come, maybe this will change if you're doing your mains at that point. And again, the genericity to specificity, this also can be given in the way forward. Next is in the Indian context, IIT Madras had a Center for Responsible AI, and there was University of Texas at Dallas. Both of them created the Indy-CASA framework. Indy-CASA framework is a data set which has 2,575 validated sentence pairs. It covers caste, religion, gender, disability and socioeconomic status. It uses contrastive learning, and it measures the deviation from stereotype balance. It tests both open and closed AI systems. Now, with this, we are moving to the prelims practice question for the day. Consider the following statements. Large language models represent words and concepts in numerical vector spaces called embedding spaces. Safety fine-tuning, completely extreme statement, eliminates structural bias in AI systems. Indy-CASA framework is developed in India to test socially contextual bias in AI models. So 2 is wrong, 3 is right. So the answer should be 1 and 3 only, option D. Let's check. Yes, the answer is 1 and 3 only. With this, we come to the end of this topic and we move to the next topic for the day. So the next topic of the day, this topic that we are going to deal with, talks about the things that pertain to courts. Now the Supreme Court has stated that certain high courts are behaving like Supreme Courts themselves, and why it is important for us to understand this phenomenon and actually work on it. This article was taken from the Live Law, and we are moving into topic for the day. So this is the news. This article was taken from the Live Law. All high courts are equal, and we should not encourage transferring of matters from one high court to the other high court. Now, what is the issue before the Supreme Court? The petition sought the transfer of GST related cases pending in multiple high courts to one single high court. Now, what are the challenge? First one is GST levy on horse racing. That is, 28% of GST was levied on horse race betting. That is, the court stated that we do not mind if it is a game of skill or if it is a game of chance. But then 28% GST becomes mandatory, and also the GST on actionable claims. Now these two are the challenges. It refused to transfer cases. It stated that all high courts are equal. So when you are transferring cases to one high court, it becomes forum shopping. Forum shopping is a phenomenon where you choose one particular forum or one particular court where you will get your favorable result. Now when all cases are transferred to one particular court, it creates an identity that this court is superior than the other courts. Now Article 13A of the Constitution states that the Supreme Court may transfer cases from one high court to other. So the Supreme Court has all the authority to transfer one case to another, and it withdraws cases involving same or substantially same questions of law pending in multiple high courts. However, power is discretionary. Law declared by Supreme Court is binding on all courts in India, and that high courts have power to issue writs for fundamental rights or any other purpose, but not for this. Now, the equality of high courts. A constitution does not create hierarchy among high court. Each high court is a constitutional court and it has equal status within its territorial jurisdiction. What is the federal judicial structure? India has an integrated judiciary. So the Supreme Court is at top, the High Court, and then the local courts. So but the federal balance is through separate high courts for states and union territories. And the independent jurisdiction is under Article 226. The Supreme Court has clarified that divergent high court rulings are not unconstitutional and the Supreme Court will be the final interpreter. So, the 101st Constitutional Amendment Act of 2016 also stated that there is a concurrent power for GST, there is interstate GST and GST Council. Now, the actionable claims will be defined under Transfer of Property Act, includes claims of unsecured debt, beneficial interest, movable property not in possession. GST applicability on actionable claims has been subject to litigation is what it states. Now, the prelims practice question for the day. With reference to powers of the Supreme Court, consider the following statements. Under Article 139A, the Supreme Court may transfer cases involving the same question of law pending before different high courts. High courts in India are hierarchically ranked based on territorial size. No, they are all equal. The law declared by the Supreme Court is binding on all courts in India. Yes. So we know that statement 2 is wrong and statement 3 is right. So the answer should be 1 and 3 only, option A. Let's check. Yes, the answer is 1 and 3 only. With this, we come to the end of this topic and we move to the next topic for the day. So today's next topic of the day is about the Great Nicobar Project. And now we have to see in relation to the NGT and what they have told and how this news is very important to the UPSC perspective. So the troubled waters on the Great Nicobar Project and what is actually happening is the news. So now the Great Nicobar Project. There are certain pillars of the Great Nicobar Project. Let's look at it. The first one, this is the Great Nicobar Island. Now look at it. You have the Galathea National Park, which hosts a lot of leatherback turtles. Now, it is approximately 80 crores project, and the township with residential, commercial, logistics and defense facilities are about 150 kilometers. The airport that's going to come, the dual use, the civilian and the military airport is about 9 kilometers. There is also a transshipment port that is there, that is about 7.66 square kilometers. And the gas and solar based power plant is about 0.39 kilometers. These are the pillars. So we have a township that's coming, a dual airport, transshipment port and the gas and solar based power plant. So these are the 4 mega pillars of the Great Indian Nicobar Project. Now, what happened? The Kolkata bench recently, the Kolkata bench of the National Green Tribunal has ruled that there are environmental safeguards that are being placed upon the Nicobar area and we need not worry. But then it is accepted that the government's appraisal is in process, and when there is a strategic utility that is happening for the civilian people, we do not have to properly give any transparency to you is what the bench has told. But then what is strategic utility? When it is going to affect the environment, when it is going to affect civilians? What is strategic utility, and is it okay to not be transparent with things like this? is the question here. Now the challenge between the before the NGT is that Ashish Kothari, a person, challenged the environmental clearance. He was the head, and along with Ashish Kothari, a lot of people challenged the environmental clearance, and they told that the national project for this Great Nicobar Island should not come. But then, however, today they are going to implement it, and there have been alleged violation of the Coastal Regulation Zone rules in 2019. That is, there are 4 rules that are there, and in the 4th rule, that is in the Coastal Regulation Zones, in the 4th rule, you cannot damage any shoreline or anything that has wildlife importance is what the Coastal Regulation rules are stating. But then now when this project comes into accord, it will violate the Coastal Regulation rules, and we have to understand how that is happening. The High Powered Committee, it was formed by the National Green Tribunal and was chaired by Leena Nandan, and the report is not made fully public. Again, the transparency question, and the center is stating that it is a strategic confidentiality document and it has a lot of strategic utility, so we will not be able to share the outcome of this. So with this, the NGT ruling, it upheld environmental clearance. It said that the project is not prohibited by ICRZ zones, the Coastal Regulation Zone. It is beyond that, and it imposed safeguards for coral reefs and shore protection and endangered species. That's what it's saying, and it highlighted that the project is beyond all this and it has a lot of strategic importance. But then if you see, strategic utility is here, but economic vulnerability and social displacement are also 2 other pillars of the Nicobar project. Yes. So with this, the environmental concerns that are raised. Now when we are talking about the environmental concern of the Nicobar project, we can also talk about an island, the Banavas Island of Fiji. The Banavas Island of Fiji. So in 1945, a lot of British people and British High Commissioners, they were actually exploiting this Banavas Island with a lot of mining activity. And when this mining activity kept going on and on, their land was entirely degraded. And they were moved to the Rabi Island. The civilians were moved to the Rabi Island, which was 2000 kilometers away from the Banavas Island, which is why we can see that it is very, very significant that when mining activities, when developmental activities take place, there is a high stake, and today people are actually talking about a parallel. Will the Great Nicobar Island become the next Banavas Island is what they are talking about. Now when we talk about the environmental concerns, independent scientists have raised objections because it will include the felling of about 9 lakh trees in that region. Again, this will increase global warming, sea level rise. It is a threat to the tropical forests, and the impact on the leatherback turtle is the nesting site. This is the nesting site. It is of high marine importance, and the coastal ecosystems will be damaged. And the concerns about the tribal life. Questions is raised in compliance with the Forest Rights Act and the allegations that the members of the Shankar and Nicobar tribes were pressured to sign surrender certificates. So what are surrender certificates in this context? Them giving in writing that they do not have any problem when a developmental activity is taking place in their zone is what is called as the surrender certificate. So when the surrender certificate is signed, it brings us to a point whether this was done out of their own will and transparency, or were they forced to sign the surrender certificates is another question. inside this Great Nicobar Project. Now the transparency, the HPC findings ensure that there should be environmental audits that are independent, not just the government, the environmental audits that are separated from the government to ensure transparency, and the biodiversity protection, the strict monitoring of coral reefs, the turtle nesting sites, and the shoreline erosion and habitat restoration. The 4 points: coral reef, turtle nesting site, shoreline erosion and restoration, all should be taken into account is one more pointer. Next, the tribal rights. See, in accordance with the Forest Rights Act, there should be entirely a complete compliance and informed consent for the tribal rights is the third point, and there should be a oversight, the regulatory oversight, that is the National Green Tribunal should periodically review, and there should also be a court monitored mechanism. The court should also take in accountability to what is happening to the Great Nicobar Island, and the periodical review should be by National Green Tribunal and court monitored mechanism. So when either one is not able to do it, the other one can step in. That's why they have given two things. It is not that both of them should review. If one is not available, the other one should be able to review. And the third one is the disaster resilience, seismic, tsunami, climate risk assessment, and phase development to adopt the disasters should also be there, because it's a island nation. Now we have come to the end of today's topic, and the mains practice question for the day is: the Great Nicobar Project has triggered intense debate over environmental sustainability, tribal rights and strategic imperatives. Discuss the key environmental and legal concerns associated with the project. How can India balance ecological protection with strategic developmental objectives in fragile island ecosystem? So you have first part here, the second part here, and the third part here. So you should be able to write each part in one page. You have 3 pages for 250 words. With this, we are coming to the end of this topic for the day, and we are moving to the prelims focus. So we come to the prelims focus for the day. The first topic is hedging. Hedging is a practice in international relations where you have you use nation's diplomacy correctly. That is, when you have an opposite nation to you, you bandwagon with them where needed, and you also have a potential to use them when they are going to be beneficial for you. That is basically hedging. So let's move into the topic. It falls between balancing a stronger power and bandwagoning, that is aligning with it. It is not clearly defined, but it's understood as a mix of selective engagement with them and limited resistance to them, and difference when you don't align with them. Now, the objective is that it allows a state to cooperate economically with a potential for adversarial power, while it also prepares for possible diplomatic and military confrontation. The effect is that it avoids direct conflict. It helps us in short term while keeping options open for the future. That is, hedging is a dual strategy. You work with a rival when beneficial, but you also quietly build strength to counter them if needed. This is hedging. The second is bio-based chemicals. They are derived from biological feedstocks such as sugar cane or biomass, starch. This is produced during fermentation process. India has a large agricultural scale, and henceforth we have high opportunity for this. The bio-based enzymes are naturally sourced enzymes from plants or from microbes, and it is applied in biofuels, food processing, textiles, etc. It includes organic acids, alcohols, solvents, surfactants, and intermediates used in plastics, cosmetics, and pharmaceuticals. It can both reduce environmental impact, but also it can also help in fossil fuel based chemicals. The second topic. The third one is India's position. India's position, because it has a strong agricultural base, it has a stronger fermentation, and the policy is that it is prioritized under the Department of Biotechnology. The key players are Praj Industries, Godrej Industries, Godavari Biorefineries, and Jubilant Ingriva String Bio. The key players are Novozymes, DuPont, Advanced Enzyme Technologies, and the market is that the enzyme sector is consolidated with the players holding over 75% of the market share. With this, we come to the prelims practice question for the day. Bio-based chemicals are best described as chemicals that are biodegradable, are produced only through microbial fermentation, are free from carbon emissions during production, are derived wholly or partly from renewable biological resources such as biomass. This was clearly stated in the PPT, so answer D is the option. Let's check. Yes, answer D is the option. With this, we come to the end of today's topics for the day. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and thank you for watching today's video.